In life spanning, there is no plan B. I'm Jean Fallacara, and my guests are coming to this podcast for a reason. There's no rules, no BS, just pure biohacking. I don't want to know what you have to sell. I want to know who you are. Welcome to the No Plan B podcast. Today, I'm super happy because I was on her podcast before, but now she's on mine, and I'm going to learn way more about the story of Dr. Joy Calm. That is beautiful to have you on board here. I'm super happy that we actually finally made it because we've been chasing each other for a long time. I was reading your resume. I can't even say everything that is there, like triple board certified physician and psychiatry, neurology, and everything. Why don't you tell us? It's going to be easier for me, and it's going to be way more accurate. Okay?
Yeah. So my story, basically, I grew up as a, little Chinese girl way over there in China, in Beijing. And I came to the U.S. when I was 20 years old. I actually studied architecture when I was in Beijing, but I decided really, I wrote the whole story in my book, The Tiger of Beijing, of why I came here. Of course, part of it is to pursue a greater future and more prosperity, more freedom, but also just adventure. I wanted to have adventure. I was restless. So in order to be able to get a scholarship, I had to change my major because in architecture it was really hard to get a scholarship. So I got into biology, which I love anyhow. I love life, the mystery of life. And then I went to medical school, went to UCLA. And then because of my fascination with the brain, I decided to go into psychiatry. So that's where the board certification in psychiatry and neurology came from. And after doing psychiatry for about 7 years after residency, I, really was driven by my own pursuit for my own health, a holistic approach. Growing up in China, I know our body, every organ is interconnected. You don't just treat one organ and, one group of cells or, hitting one receptor. It's very short-sighted. So I was interested in holistic medicine, and very quickly I encountered stem cell therapy. And that was kind of the light bulb going off, and this is it. This is, what's beautiful.
Yeah. Why? Like you switch from architecture, which is some sort of, for me, I've been always fascinated by architecture because it's the art and the mathematics behind it. So it's some sort of science applied to art. So it's the combination of the perfect word. But you switch from that to medicine and then psychiatry, which is very different part than the day-to-day learning process of any medical school, where you're going to learn about organs and functionalities of the bloodstream and everything like that. But then you go to the brain functionalities. Well, why is that?
Oh, it's just a mystery of why we think the way we do and how things can go awry, and our emotions, where did that come from, and how does it affect, our history? Just, everything about why humans behave the way they do. And when I was at UCLA on the medical ward, but we were on the psychiatry team, we were called upon to look at all these patients that some were psychotic, some, have lost their mind and were living in a totally different world and have completely different perception than what reality was. And to me, it was just so fascinating. It was more fascinating than any other disease because it changes your whole perception and identity. So I just wanted to understand the mystery. So that's really...
Did you understand the mystery? Did you find out why people are thinking that way or this way?
Well, I think psychiatry gave you a little bit of picture, and they categorize people into different diseases, right?
That's the problem, I guess.
Bipolar disorder. They say it's brain function. They pinpoint certain areas of the brain. But in the end, I don't think they know exactly, dopamine, maybe, too much.
Yeah, but then it's neuroscience mainly, because the psychiatrists, they don't play much with the neuron themselves. They're trying to diagnose the pathway of the interpretation more than the electrochemical pathway, correct?
Yeah, well, they did get something right, when it comes to the involvement of dopamine in psychosis. psychosis, I think there's definitely some truth to it, and how when you target the dopamine receptors, you can knock out a lot of psychosis. And I've seen it over and over and over.
Yeah.
That's one reason I was in psychiatry, is because the medications do work, but do they produce a lot of unfortunate side effects, making people gain a lot of weight with metabolic syndrome, or with all kinds of other organ issues? So yes, it can. But what's reality, and what are the schizophrenic patients perceiving?
That's
that what they're perceiving is not real, or could they be perceiving things that we're not seeing? And that's a whole other realm of discussion.
I love that. Because
I'm very open-minded. I wasn't open-minded when I started out, being groomed as a little communist, right? Growing up in China, being told, of course, there's no God. Of course, the human natural evolution of society is progressing from feudalism to capitalism, and then you improve and you become socialism. So there's this, you're told this is what the natural is. This is like the natural law. That's what I was told. And, I was closed-minded in a sense that, of course there was no God, like that's been proven.
Well, there's still no proof of that.
Yeah, that was my view, until I started to get to know things like ESP, like Qigong, right? Meditation, Chinese meditation, Qigong, being able to cure people of diseases, and some people are able to see somebody else's internal organs. I mean, these are reported over and over and over. And to the point where I thought, okay, if I am a true scientist, because I prided myself in loving science and being a scientist at heart, if I'm a scientist, and if I keep denying the veracity, the truthfulness of these stories, that means I'm not being a scientist.
Correct.
I mean, being a bigot, being just arrogant, like so many other people in the history, that they would not admit when new science show up. So I do have, so I open my mind up to the possibilities. And now I'm, very much interested in psychedelic medicine. I do ketamine therapy in my own clinic. Okay. Not a big emphasis, but I want that to be available for people, because I understand the perception of what we call reality may not be the full picture. And I think human consciousness are evolving. So in that sense, I'm like a new group of psychiatrists, I guess. I'm not doing the traditional psychiatry, but I'm still fascinated by how the brain works.
Of course. And I think that getting into the conscience, it's going to be a big step, because still today we don't know the relationship perfectly between what is the conscience of people and the reaction from the body. I have to jump back into what you were saying at the beginning, because you triggered and you piqued my interest in that point. You said medicine works. I'm going to contradict you on that. SSRI don't work.
Well, I've seen it work. I've seen it work on myself. I've seen it work on many patients, but it's true. Supposedly each medication only has a 30% chance of helping somebody. But I've seen it saving lives. So I'm not going to strike down a whole category of medicine, because I've seen the tremendous benefit I've had when I was taking a medication. I haven't really talked about this, but it's funny, in medical school, I think half of us were on antidepressants. And all of us, you were right. One time I was whispering to a good friend's ears, I said, well, I'm on the antidepressant. And then he said, me too. And also Damon. And so we're like, all of a sudden, so much pressure. We all have unresolved issues. So do you suffer, or do you want to continue to suffer? What if you don't have other tools, right? If you don't
but that's the problem, I guess. Yeah, we don't have other tools today.
Don't have the tools. I mean, I didn't have the tools, right? I tried to eat healthy, try to exercise, and that didn't get me to where I needed to be. So do you suffer through? Do you, lose your concentration, lose your sense of joy? Just feeling hopeless? Do you want to continue that? Or do you want to feel better so you can kind of gather your life back together and then move on from there? And maybe then you do everything else possible. So I think for more acute situations, it's very helpful. But even I think it's a tool. But I always think, well, I'm not on any medications now. I was able to, through doing anti-aging medicine, optimizing nutrition, hormones, and and doing everything else, I don't need it anymore. So that's where I would like people to be. But I think it still has a role as far as reducing suffering, because the last thing I want to do, as a human and as a healer, as a doctor, is to see people suffer. This can give them years of life back. So I don't want to knock it down completely. But if we're just throwing medications at people without optimizing everything first, or without optimizing at the same time, then you're really missing the boat. Unfortunately, most doctors and most psychiatrists don't have the tools. They don't know what to do.
Why?
So then
it's because the school didn't teach them how to do it, or it's because they don't do the effort to understand what is happening there?
Medical schools are controlled by the current medical apparatus establishment, which is controlled by big pharmaceutical companies. They fund most of the medical education. They fund most of the FDA.
The research.
So, yes. So we were groomed to be, pill pushers, really, if you want to be just blunt about it, because all we were taught was, first of all, how to identify diseases. So just don't do anything. We won't teach you how to do anything to prevent people from getting sick anyhow. We give you half an hour nutrition education. So go figure how much you can do with that. And then just wait until people get sick. And then you can show your power as a doctor, because I can give you a diagnosis, right? I ask you all these questions, I can run some tests, and I give you diagnosis. What is the purpose of diagnosis? Is so I can fit you
prescribe
category, because all these drugs are particularly, designed to fit into these categories. So they all have the FDA indication. Once you can fit them in, sometimes it's off-label use, but still supported by literature. So once you have these, the categories, and then you can fit the medication in. So then we are, that's all we needed to do. I mean, it's pretty, plug and play. We just let me put you in the category, and then I can give you medication. That's
that's the way that our world has been designed today. Our society is based on that. Like we need to have title, job, salaries, brackets, type of insurance, type of houses according to your capacity and things like that. But never we try to extend outside of those drawers that we've designed to put people in. So why the medicine would go in another direction, I don't know. I'm not sure. I know that for sure many people across America, especially, or even in Europe, I think it's pretty much the same problem. Are still chasing the magic pill for one thing or the other thing. And the worst in this case is not just the doctor feedback, is the patient himself goes to the doctor and give me those pills in case I'm gonna have that. It doesn't even have that.
I'm gonna tell you good news. I just heard it from a nurse supervisor at Kaiser, and she was talking about how several doctors have come to her and admitting that they are feeling less joy in the work they do. They're seeing that patients are changing. Yeah. Patients are not satisfied. Just give me a pill. Now they ask all these questions. They're
informed.
Want to do better, and people are changing. They want more holistic and more help, not just be given a pill and be done with it. So that's why I always said, holistic medicine, integrated medicine, this is a grassroots movement. Same as stem cells. It's grassroots. People are fed up and they want more. So it's already changed. So doctors but the doctors are saying, well, but I'm not trained in that. So I don't know what to do. I know it seems like that's a new way of medicine, but I'm not trained. So I don't know what to offer patients. Either the doctor go educate him or herself, or they just, they get stuck in the old ways and they can't help the patients very much. And the patients will end up finding people like us.
But in a way, the world is moving so fast. We have to remember that those doctors, they went to school, they learned some stuff, they put diagnostic. Now the patient are informed because of the information available out there. In the future, I can tell you that those doctors will be assisted by machine learning and artificial intelligence. So they don't even have to think about it or even to learn the process of it, because they're going to be getting diagnostic that are far away from what they've learned. And the beauty of artificial intelligence integrated into that is the fact that not only you're going to get the diagnostic for you as a doctor, not even thinking about the patient, but you're going to get the potential medicine that will cure, or the process if they want to go on a holistic way or changing the diet or nutrition, as well, because artificial intelligence will compile all this information available for everyone. So there is hope on that side. I think that the more we get open to that, the more it's going to happen fast. And we're probably part of this first line in the line of fire. But I have hope that's going to solve by itself.
Yeah, well, let's all live long and then see that day happen.
That's the goal.
Right. That's
the goal.
Right.
Yeah.
The evolution.
Yeah.
So I know you're a big fan of biohacking, right? I just saw you at biohacking conference.
Like you are. This is the thing. Today we were talking before getting into the podcast, but what I felt in the biohacking industry or the longevity industry is like more and more we see people trying to some sort of take a cover on them and saying, biohacking is mine. I'm a biohacker. I'm a longevity fierce fighter. The story is we came up with a word that we invented, lifespanning. It doesn't exist. I trademarked that new word, lifespanning. So it's a new concept. And the goal is like what I said before, is I'm trying to make people understand that science, biohacking, longevity, we're all talking about the same stuff. And we have all together the same goal, making people live longer, better, fitter, if we can. And this is what you're doing. Like you've been one of the first in America using stem cells. You've been criticized, you've been admired, you've been in that process for a long time, and your name rings every time that someone speaks about stem cell, your name pops up. Now, I've read somewhere that you had some criticism about the misuse of stem cell in certain area in the medicine. Do you mind sharing the information with me?
I don't know what that criticism is. Yeah. The stem cell therapy, I'm just talking from an educator perspective, right?
Because you are,
Yeah, I founded American Academy of Integrated Cell Therapy. I've lectured in various medical conferences. When I lecture, I talk about evidence. I show studies. I have no interest in just expounding on my point of view. I mean, who cares? I want to show you.
Well, no, we care. We care.
Okay,
point of
I
view.
don't. I don't think it counts as much. But so I will show you what people have found out. Numerous studies looking at all kinds of organs and diseases. I mean, you name it. I have a library of articles categorized by organ systems and disease categories. So most of the common diseases probably have been studied. If they haven't, maybe one, they're not common enough, or, some may be difficult. The origin of the disease may be difficult to address with stem cells. But if you look at the origins of diseases, if there's inflammation or immune dysregulation involved as part of the disease process, or even tissue damage, then stem cell therapy can be potentially very powerful in helping these conditions. So, looking at different organs, heart, liver, kidneys, bladder, or even testicles, ovaries, and you can look at rejuvenation of skin, hair, and all kinds of musculoskeletal healing. That's like kind of the bread and butter of stem cell therapy. And, one thing that I've been talking about is anti-aging benefit, which is actually allowing the cells to rejuvenate your body from a very global level, because the cells that get into your body can interact with your immune system, and immune senescence is a huge part of what's driving aging, and inflammation is a result.
Currently, yes.
Yeah. So aging is a word that's coined for the nature to portray the nature of aging. So if you can, calm the inflammation and rejuvenate the immune system, and all of a sudden, studies have shown, especially animals, I mean, they've shown some results in humans, but the human study, if you want to study lifespan, that's going to take a very long time.
Yeah.
But want to have a glimpse of what it does. For example, they studied mice and rats, and when they give these animals, either younger mice or rats stem cells, or even young human stem cells, they tend to live about 30% longer. If you, like one study, they started giving them aged. Or there's another study that started giving these rats that were the human equivalent age of 75 years old, and they started giving them regular IV stem cells. I think it's twice a month. And the rats that got these stem cells ended up living, for the amount of time they have left from the time of the experiment, they lived 3 times as long, basically. So that's a great sign. And then another study was looking at what happens in their muscles and in their brain. They actually, sacrifice these animals and then dissect out these tissue. And they found out that the neurotransmitters, growth factors, and senescent factors and toxic buildup, everything had gone back to the younger state just by regular IV stem cells. So this is powerful because
it is.
Now we have objective evidence that not just these animals are looking younger, because all those lifespan studies, they've shown animals their spine are straighter, their hair is shinier, and their cognition is better, their locomotion is really good. So you can see, from all these outward signs of vitality. But this other study actually looked at all the biological markers that shows, usually you show a trend, of decline when you age. And then if you just gave the stem cells and then that trend was reversed, you went back to the previous state, that's pretty resounding evidence, of how it can reverse your age. So I don't know if I've ever been criticized. There's certainly
you've been criticized. I don't think so.
There are people who were saying that people who don't believe in umbilical cord or birth tissue stem cells, and these tend to be the people who have been doing bone marrow.
It's always a question of
for a long time. The fat-derived stem cells. That's to lesser extent. But the bone marrow group was the earliest, right? The first stem cell treatment was the bone marrow transplant. So that's
because at the beginning we thought that it was the only way you could get stem cells.
Exactly. At first we didn't even know we were doing stem cell transplant, and then we found out there's stem cells in it. Then we thought that's the only place we have stem cells, and then they found out everywhere you have stem cells, anywhere you you have stem cells. So the fat, the fat-derived stem cells really came from taking out the fat, but when you spin them down, all the cells, the stem cells that are lining the blood vessels that are supplying the fat are there. And so you are extracting those cells. So nothing to do with the fat cells. It's really the blood vessels that you're getting out. There are certain people who are saying, well, these birth tissue stem cells have no life cells in it. And that's just laughable. It's so laughable. It's because it's a false statement. When people ask me that, I was like, how do you counter a lie? Because if we have done third-party testing showing that cells are alive, no matter how you slice it, they were alive. And these are done by reputable, independent third-party labs. I mean, it's right there. The cells are alive. And then, the clinical result, of course, speak for itself. But the cells are alive and they produce, profound benefits. So whether or not detractors or competitors, ordered a vial from a company or we don't know how the testing were done, how long the cells were, sat on the counter. It's a little silly. You would think that we're all in this space to enhance people's health, that we are going to respect science and we're going to respect each other. But that's not what I've seen. But I think majority of the people are respectful. But unfortunately, the people who are not, have very loud voices. Sometimes,
that's always like that. Yeah.
Like, whoa, so much noise going on.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I think that, the facts are facts. Like you said before, publication are publication. They're not like you cannot contradict that. There's noises probably because I know that some stem cell, when they are like injected on IV in general like that, not with a target in certain organs or part of the body, they can migrate to other parts. And if you have a slight tumor or some things that is in the degeneration side of it, some people have said that it could actually aggravate the problem you had before. And so they're reluctant to stem cell through IV because of that.
Yeah, so I want to do a video just on that subject because there's a lot of there are concerns and there's a lot of information. I wouldn't say a lot, but definitely there are various studies on the subject. So there are definitely two sides. One side is that stem cells, let's say mesenchymal stem cells, these are right now the most popular type that people are looking at. Those are the ones that are hovering around your blood vessels. They're everywhere in your body. they can promote the cancer growth, especially if they're older. So the evidence of older stem cells, so stem cells can get old in several ways. One is by living with you and staying in your body, and
You better be young with me.
they're the age, they're the age of you. So however many, how many years you've lived, how much alcohol you've had, how much smoke, all the terrible things you've done, right? It's going to leave its mark. And then the other way of getting the cells old is by letting the cells multiply in a culture medium.
Right.
That means that they are incubated, in a kind of incubator, and it's through many passages so they can grow to huge numbers. So then they can senesce, so they get older and older. So these are potential risks. When the cells senesce, then they have less potential to recognize cancer and to help, get rid of cancer. But the younger cells do have more tendency to shrink cancer and help you to defeat them. It's fascinating. There's a study that they were doing direct comparisons between umbilical cord-derived MSCs, mesenchymal stem cells, versus fat-derived MSCs. So that's from a person's fat, right? It's the age of the same person. So they put these MSCs next to cancer cells, to the most virulent form of brain cancer, the glioblastoma. So they put them next to these cancer cells, both in a petri dish and also on a live animal's body. So that's in vitro and in vivo experiment. In both cases, the fat-derived stem cells made the cancer grow bigger and bigger, whereas then the umbilical cord cells made the cancer shrink and go away. Yeah, both in the petri dish and on the animal's body. So there are these two sides. It's a bit of a tug of war. What I believe is that if I'm giving people these young stem cells that have not been grown to large populations in passages, then they have the, I would say the overwhelming type of effect they have will be anti-cancer. So I have no hesitation in putting that in my body. We all have precancerous changes all the time, just by living. So that's occurring all the time. If I can boost my immune system, and also knowing that these cells have the potential to kill off cancer, I'm putting in my body. Actually, I have been putting in my body every 3 months for the last 7 years.
I have a question for that, for you on that topic, actually. So you are putting stem cells that are powerful. They have probably the power to reverse cancer in a certain way. But if the body that is the receiver of those stem cells is not in the best shape, what is the reaction of those stem cells? They're going to assimilate along like the toxicity of the body that is already innate in that body. Like if the guy that you're, or the woman, or you're injecting stem cell is consuming alcohol or smoking tobacco and taking some cocaine at the same time and not sleeping, and you're putting new stem cell, what are the chances?
So toxicity is going to be toxic to stem cells for sure.
Yeah.
If you have toxic, substances floating around your body and a lot of oxidative damages, yes, you're going to damage the cells. But the only thing, a caveat, is to look at inflammation, because a lot of people think, oh, I have to calm the inflammation down. Some doctors think that calm the inflammation for the patient in order for the stem cells to work better. And actually not necessarily, because if you allow the inflammation to be there, the stem cells are going to be woken up so much more. It's almost like, you're giving them a little whip and saying,
that's their job, actually. They go on the sites that have inflammation.
To create more growth factors or more signals and help the body heal. So it turns out that you may not need to calm the inflammation, but you do want to reduce the toxicity.
For sure.
Yeah.
Good point. It's very interesting. I think I'm with you on that. I truly believe that stem cells are part of the future, and they're really part of the longevity process. Big part of it. One part is probably triggering some segment of our DNA as well that could help. Because at the end of the day, the senescence of the cell is what makes us dying or getting older and older. And so far, no one has found the process of stopping that. You can improve it, you can prolong that term, but you cannot stop it or even reverse it the other way.
The fact that stem cells can reverse some of the senescence, that's pretty remarkable. It does it, it does it in different ways. So one really fun way is it's just simple mitochondrial transfer, which is really fun. The stem cells actually have been caught on electron microscopy. The new stem cells that, for example, if you use young stem cells, you won't get that if you use your own. But if you get young newborn, which is from the umbilical cord stem cells, they're actually in between the embryonic stem cells and the baby stem cells. So because they're trapped early when the baby's forming, the cells are trapped in the umbilical cord. They're kind of in between the embryonic stem cells and the baby stem cells. So they're very primitive. So they have very young mitochondria also. When you have these cells infused into the body, injected, they have shown that these new cells will allow its own mitochondria to travel across a microtubule, this bridge. So they actually go across the bridge and get into the recipient cells. Sometimes they just spit it out into the space, spit out this mitochondria, and the mitochondria finds its way. And sometimes they put in large vesicles. It's funny, cells do all kinds of things to give. So mitochondria, that's one way to rejuvenate your cells, right? People talk about mitochondrial health a lot. All of a sudden, you're getting young, fresh mitochondria. All of a sudden, your cells have elevated energy. And then the cells can also, of course, trigger your local stem cells to come alive. So you can, your immune system can get rid of the senescent cells because it enhances your immune system. And then your local stem cells will regenerate. And now all of a sudden, you have younger tissue cells. It can also rejuvenate by sending out these microRNAs that's usually packaged in these exosomes. Mm-hmm. So the cells will spit out all these exosomes. So there's just a little piece of membrane that buzz out, but it contains all these information. So it sends out all this information, like raining exosomes. And the exosomes contain these microRNA that can actually cross cell nucleus and interact with the DNA and repair the DNA and rejuvenate it. Remember we're talking about peptides like epitalon, that these bioregulators, tiny little peptides, can actually go across cell nucleus and repair the DNA. And then it can rejuvenate the cells and reverse biological age. So similarly,
it's all about coding actually. So for the people that are not familiar with RNA or DNA and coding, so it's basically amino acid chains that form that in a form or the other, and they can go through the membranes and change the coding of your own DNA in a very simplistic way. The complexity of what you were saying transposed to the simplicity to the one that had no science background.
Right, nucleic acid. I think that's another front that people are not talking about too much yet. About I think people talk about the peptides quite a bit.
A lot, more and more.
Yeah. The nucleic acid, I think that's still lacking, and it may come to the forefront at some point as far as supplements that help with nucleic acid, with DNA health. We've been addressing, health of our protein, health of our membrane, but the nucleic acid, that hasn't been addressed enough. No. But, I'm sure that those supplements are going to come on board.
Yeah, getting there. When you say supplements, they're probably not supplements that you take on pills. It's more like supplements that get through your bloodstream directly, because most of the supplements that you take are just like going into your pee or in the bathroom. You're paying a very expensive fee.
I don't
not all
that scientists could find really great ways of delivery that we can take a pill and produce pretty drastic changes. So I think when it comes to rejuvenation and stem cells can exert its benefit in all these different ways to make a person younger.
So on the same page of that stem cell recoding the DNA and changing that genetic codes, do you think that the CRISPR technology could help changing and the way we live longer?
It's possible. I'm not an expert in gene editing, but I think it's definitely that's another frontier. It's a possibility. That's interesting. I don't know how much has been looked upon as far as aging and.
It's mainly today it's on cancer research and trying to cure disease. But when you look at the foundation of aging, it's some sort of a disease as well. So it's a degeneration that is triggered by a coding of your DNA that goes into different aspects of your biology. And CRISPR could probably, I don't know, I'm just guessing, but
changing genetic coding. But the issue with diseases like aging or like a lot of diseases is so multifactorial. There's be so many genes involved or so many factors involved. So it's going to be challenging to think something like that. It's going to make, huge strides unless they discover something that's propelling our age.
It's the beauty of science, always trying to,
and possibilities.
Yeah. And I actually, that allows me to jump back to what you said at the beginning of the podcast when you were talking about being into science, and you couldn't stay there without criticizing what is out there or not changing, or this is what science is made for. You need to actually always go against what is existing and try to change it for another process or better technology or better world or whatsoever. That's one. And the second, I really want to get you back on what you said about the brain of people that are either on depression or with psychiatric issues. And you said something very interesting. You said maybe they see the world differently. Now, with the quantum theory, that is bringing a new concept of our perception and the possibility of living in different worlds at the same time. Are we talking about those guys that are in psychiatric condition, maybe living in another other dimension could be explained by quantum physics?
I think it's possible. Yeah, it's possible. Maybe not all of them. I've seen such a huge variety of delusions, hallucinations. I think some could be tapping into, an alternate reality. I really think so. But nonetheless, it's not welcome. These people do not want it. It's torturous to be living in two worlds and not knowing what's real. If you are thinking something from another world is real, but you're confusing that with this world, you can't really function well in this world and you're suffering. So, the bottom line of medicine is to reduce suffering. If a person is suffering, that's a disease. So if we can somehow help maybe close that down, if you living in two realities and that's making you suffer, is confusing the hell out of you, then maybe time to shut one off, right? So you can concentrate on living in one world. So that's kind of my view.
Interesting.
I've never talked about this with in public, but
I want you to stick on that then, because this is an interesting approach. Do you think that these people are living, like you said, on two parallel worlds and they're suffering? But are they suffering because we are setting standard in this world here that we think it's the normal world? But when we look around us, who's normal? Who has the secret key of saying this is right or this is wrong? And why these guys maybe would choose to stick in a society that represents what we think is the right way to do it?
Is certain brain structural changes or even kind of software malfunction allowed them to tap into something else, but the problem is that those brain changes could be also causing all kinds of other problems, other pathologies. So they may be suffering from, let's say, not being able to express themselves correctly, or not caring about their hygiene and being completely suspicious of everybody around them. So they can't really function. They can't take care of themselves. So it becomes a very difficult life. And their health is, tremendously, has deteriorated because of these malfunctions. So that's when, if the person really wants it, it comes to a question, do you want to allow them to be in that state? But if the person doesn't want it, definitely you want to help them. But if they don't want it, or if they want to stay in that state, but they're causing harm to other people, then,
it's our role as a society to make sure that we're protecting others.
And also part of, what psychiatry has been doing is, kind of humanitarian, right? If the patient wants to be exactly where he's at, but you can see in front of your eyes, the health is deteriorating and they're slowly dying. As a society, as, people who care about your fellow human beings, should you step in? And so that's where the psychiatric hold, the inability for self-care, like in California, 50-50, you can put a person on there so that they can be brought in and kind of be restored to some extent so they can take care of themselves. So I think that's also reasonable, even though that's against somebody's will.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. No, you have a very valid point on that, and I agree completely. I truly believe that any psychiatric issues are mainly related to brain connection Anyway, so you are stepping into the psychedelic ketamine. Do you think that this is the avenue that will solve a lot of problem into those interconnection and neural pathway that are creating certain problem for certain person? I know that, for example, obsessive PTSD and obsessive compulsive disorders as well are well treated with ketamine and other substances like that. What's your take on that, and why did you step into that practice?
I think a lot of time, I mean, some are philosophical, right? So what we see, is this all there is? Mm-hmm. What's in front of you? Is this the entirety of reality? Or are we only seeing a tiny, tiny, tiny little slice of what is really real? So if you can't see anything and you have no avenue of perceiving it, then this is all you got. That's all you are able to believe. But if there's something that allow you to tune into a whole other frequency and a whole other way of perception, right? Just like we can't see certain frequencies of light, we can perceive, you know, certain, we're very narrow, the visible light range. But if we're able to perceive way more, you know, like, you know, dogs and, you know, animals who can see things that humans can't see.
Infrared and things like that we don't perceive.
Or, you know, bats can hear different frequencies. So then your whole world is a completely different color and different experience. If you have that, I think that will give you perspective and will teach you why you're here. Will, you know, how long are you going to be here? And that's my kind of divergence from the whole immortality movement that people want to live forever. I don't see the point. I know we are immortal, just from understanding, you know, different worlds. And,
biology in general, like it's meant to be that way.
I think, you know, we as consciousness live on and we have these different experiences. So why do I have to be stuck in this body, right? So I think the mortality movement is all about this body. Like, I need to keep this body going.
Kind of materialistic in a way.
Yeah, but for me, I was like, what about other bodies? You know, I wanted to try out other bodies, you know, let me be a whale. Let me be a dolphin for a few days. So, you know, like...
So you think do you believe in that, like reincarnation?
I think there's seem to be more and more evidence that we are.
We are energy for sure. There's
a good book. You can read it. Many Lives, Many Masters. Just read the book and then, you know, see for yourself. And all these near-death experiences. I think human consciousness is evolving, that we are beginning to accept that the real existence of the human world or of our consciousness is so much more than what we've known for the last few thousand years. You know, maybe we've known a lot more, you know, back when we were even more ancient. But that's a whole other subject.
Because our senses were probably more developed. So that put me to the right on our conclusion. And I want to ask you this question because you actually opened the door for it. You know that when you turn your face in an environment where there's people and you ask people, oh, why are you on this planet? Why do you live? If I ask you, what's the purpose of your life? What would you answer?
I've always thought, you know, ever since I was a kid, is I'm here to learn and to grow. Yeah, I'm just, you know, to have an experience.
But so, okay, to have an experience. What do you? But that doesn't. It's the purpose of you being on this planet and having a process of learning and having an experience. Can I push you into the legacy of what are you living on this planet?
Well, the legacy would be to bring more happiness to the world.
Okay.
That we could multiply, we could grow in abundance and joy. So yeah, if I can bring more joy into the world instead of...
You're already out of the name.
Right, that's right. Yeah, even the company I founded, Chara Biologics, Chara is the Greek word for joy. So awesome. I'm very much about, you know, bringing joy. And the tagline for the company was, you know, let the joy of healing begin, because there's joy in healing. Just because you got ill doesn't mean that you can come and experience the joy in healing and in the miracle of your body, right? Healing is a miracle. It's your body repairing itself.
Yeah. So joy brings that. We've seen that in the blue zones and in the principle of the Japanese culture as well. Like the joy is the center of so many aspects of having a life on purpose. And this is why I truly believe that, the legacy that we leave is not even for the next generation. It's probably in several generations after we're gone as from this body. And this is what we are here for, is to make sure that what we're living is not dirty.
Right.
Yeah. And joy is a pure feeling. It is like the best definition of the ultimate things that you can live as clean and pure is joy. I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, I recognize in myself, in the pursuit of, getting more things done, and a lot of people are caught in that, in that race, is that what's going to bring joy to you? Really, what is the purpose of life? So I'm learning to, get up in the morning and tap into that joy and ask myself, don't rush into doing anything, but figure out what's going to make you happy. Because every day that should be a new question. Every moment that should be a question. Because otherwise you're just letting things drain you and drag you around. But what makes you happy, and stick to that.
Yeah. And I think that there is way more reason around us that makes us happy than the reasons that would make us unhappy. And so many people are just focusing on the sad side of it instead of focusing on just the side of happiness. You can be happy just to be able to sit or to watch outside or to be on this podcast with you. Makes me happy.
Me too. Yeah, bringing more happiness to the world. That's
joy. It was fantastic having you. You're a very interesting person. You're a very intelligent person, and when you talk, it's fascinating. You know so much. And the beauty of having you is like you extend the horizon of knowledge, not only from like the perspective of stem cell and what you do on a daily basis, but like we spoke about architecture, quantums, joy, and everything. Communism, materialism, and everything. And at the end of the day, this is what makes our humanity so beautiful. Like we need to pay attention to the people as they are, deep inside of them, and to listen. So it was a beautiful moment for me. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share and for asking interesting questions and allowing me to talk about things I've never talked about.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you, Joy.
Yeah, thank you, John.